How's it going, fellas? Today we are going to be going over the Season 20 weapon tuning preview for Destiny 2. A subtle low-key TWAB was just dropped here for us on Wednesday, not even a Thursday yet, so we're going to get something even juicier tomorrow. Getting into it, g'day Guardians, we're back with another weapons preview. In Season 19's mid-season balance update, we brought several changes to address weapons in PvP. In Season 20, with a new campaign and raid incoming, we focused on a substantial pass over heavy weapons in PvE and adding subclass verbs to several exotic weapons, trying in with the new anti-champion capabilities with these verbs as well. Between the new changes and everything else that is new or changing in Lightfall, we're looking forward on seeing what combinations players will settle on for the legendary campaign and the day one raid. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. I already looked over this preview a little bit before I started recording, and we got some great changes, man. Metas are definitely gonna be flipped. So starting off, we're gonna be going over the weapon archetypes. When playing on console, your reticle will turn red when you are over an enemy that is inside your weapon's effective range. This is a useful visual aid, and we've wanted it to go global for a while. So we've also enabled this on PC. In a future season, we'll be making this more color customizable, similar to the base reticle color. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you, fellas. I was on console at one time, switched over to PC, and I had zero idea that this was even a feature. Next up, linear fusion rifles. Oh man, you probably saw this coming. We did. Linear fusion rifles outperform other heavy weapons for boss damage by a wide margin, and they've had plenty of time in the sun. We're bringing them down enough for other options to compete. At this time, exotic heavy linear fusion rifles don't do enough to justify using it over a legendary, so they're not affected by this nerf. So I just want to emphasize that they did say heavy linear fusion rifles, so it does appear that Arbelest may not be affected by this at all as well. So they are reducing the damage versus champs, mini bosses, and vehicles by 15%. So by simply popping a empowering rift, that should be back to where it was currently. Sleeper Stimulant and Queenbreaker are unaffected. Sleeper fans, this is not a drill. Let me keep it real, I haven't seen a sleeper fan in a long while. Up next, machine guns. Machine guns have been buffed a few times over the past year or so, but only in PvE. We've opted into increasing their base damage a little, which makes them more forgiving to use in PvP. The buff also applies across the board in PvE. PvP damage is typically the base, and PvE has multipliers on top of that. We're also substantially increasing machine gun reserves, hallelujah, giving them higher uptime, particularly useful in hard content. I'm gonna keep it real, I love that change. I know people see those reserves and they don't see too much of an issue, but in reality, machine guns get like 3 mags and that's it. They need more ammo. So, to get into the changes of machine guns, they're increasing the damage by 10%, essentially upping its TTK against Guardians with tier 6 resilience. They seem to be focused towards PvP, so other than the reserves being buffed, there's not a whole lot here for me specifically to look forward to, for I am a PvE endgame player. But high impact frames are reducing their TTK from a 0.67 to 0.50. Holy, half a second. Rapid fire frames are getting their TTK reduced from 0.53 to 0.47. Wow, good thing those things don't got a lot of range. And in adaptive frames, arguably the best frames in machine guns, their TTK is unchanged. Well, we all saw that coming. Increased ammo reserves by 50%, holy, at inventory stat 0. That's huge. And 20% at 100 inventory stat. That is absolutely crazy. I absolutely love that. Note, inventory stat is a 0 to 100 value behind the scenes. This is present as the actual number of rounds in the game, but you can take this to mean that low reserve machine guns get a big boost, while large reserve machine guns get a smaller boost. Either way, they're getting a boost in reserves, and I love the sound of it. Moving on, probably the biggest change in my opinion so far. Heavy grenade launchers. Heavy grenade launchers haven't been touched in a while, and are substantially below some of the other heavy options for damage. On top of that, grenade launcher projectiles have travel time, a ballistic arc, and a relatively small blast radius. I could agree there, this thing is not optimal for ad clearing, so it can be hard to consistently land shots on a moving target, and they may hit fewer targets with an explosion than you'd expect. Heavy grenade launchers should be significantly more useful in PvE, and easier to use in both PvE and PvP. Getting into the changes, they are increasing the damage versus champs, mini bosses, and vehicles by 20%. That's huge. Miners by 40%. I'm gonna keep it real with you. With the reserves on a grenade launcher, I am not using a grenade launcher for ad clearing, so 40% extra damage on miners really doesn't mean much for me. Improved projectile collision, making it slightly easier to land shots. We love this change. Maybe micro missile will become a thing again. Blast radius increased by 1 meter. I'm gonna hold my opinion on that one. I don't know if it's that good yet. We'll find out though. Parasite is unaffected, sad day. It does huge damage already. Moving on to the shotguns. The new shotgun reticles show the correct spread pattern, but in its shipping from the size of the current reticle wasn't affected by the current spread angle, which will change if you dump or with magazine options like smoothbore. This change should make the reticle accurate in most ways, at an 85-degree field of view. A change to make this accurate for all FOV options will come in the future season. So to get even more specific with this, shotgun reticles now change in size proportion to spread angle. Related note, the Legend of Accurious hipfire reticle is now a bit more representative of its very large spread angle. I'm gonna keep it real. I think that Legend of Accurious should have a stagnant pattern. I was in Duality just the other day using Accurious for Galround, and it wasn't bad. You could definitely get a 2-phase off, but it would just be nicer to know that it was a shot package type deal. Moving on to the kinetic weapons. Kinetic slot weapons have always been 5% more damage versus unshielded targets in PvE. This means that kinetic slot stasis weapons were straight up better, just in every aspect. With extra functionality and no downside, we wanted to give players more of a reason to run kinetic damage type weapons. So instead of the blanketed kinetic slot damage boost, we're switching it to kinetic damage type boost based on whether your kinetic weapon uses primary or special ammo, and increases the bonus significantly. Fellas, that means Wither Horde. That means Arbelest. That means Izanagi's Burden is getting a damage boost. Only a slight one, but we'll take it. Kinetic primary damage weapons will have a multiplier from a 1.05 to a 1.1. Kinetic special weapon damage multiplier increased from a 1.05 to a 1.15. 10%, baby. Kinetic slot stasis weapons no longer have the 5% damage buff versus unshielded targets in PvE. There's also a kinetic damage type perk coming in Lightfall. Ooh, that's good. We love to see that. You know, there was always a thought in my mind that kinetics had no love, but maybe they're saved. We'll have to find out. Moving on to the exotics. Just like many players, we want exotic weapons that have a strong theming around their damage type to use the real subclass 3.0 verbs. In Lightfall's longer development and playtest cycle gave us the opportunity to add subclass verbs to many of the top picks. Our goal with adding subclass 3.0 verbs to this, grant these weapons additional functionality and let them tie into subclass builds in a more meaningful way. In most cases, this is also or is paired with a hefty buff. The Queenbreaker blinding effect was underwhelming for a heavy weapon. I'm gonna keep it real. It's underwhelming just because it's on a sniper to begin with, or linear fusion more specifically. So we've changed how that's deployed. Note that Queenbreaker was also not affected by the global damage reduction to linear fusion rifles, making it substantially stronger by comparison. I highly doubt anyone's gonna use it still. Shot now chains to nearby enemies and uses Arc 3.0 blind. I'm holding my opinion on this one, though I did just state it earlier. We will have to see how this goes. That's all I'm saying. Ruinous Effigy feels very void-y. By slamming the transmutation sphere was an obvious place to put an additional effect. The transmutation sphere slam attack now suppresses. That's goated. But is it enough? We'll have to find out. The Leviathan's breath buff from a few seasons back was inadvertently reduced in the PvE damage, enough that it could no longer one-hit kill players in their super with a headshot. We've fixed that, but also added volatile. Ooh, man. And increased the damage versus champions substantially to highlight its anti-champion role. I'm gonna keep it real with you. I used this just a couple seasons back. It was pathetic. This needs 10 buffs. We'll see if we get it. Leviathan's breath now applies volatile on perfectly drawn impact. That's huge. You get volatile rounds every time you fully pull it back. Increased damage from 396 to 442. I have zero idea what that means. I'm sure it's a PvP number. Oh, says it right in the next sentence. This allows it once again to one-hit kill guardians in a super in PvP. Increased damage versus champions by 30%. It totally needed that, 100%. I want a reason to use it. I have an ornament for it. 1000 Voices was briefly a top pick in season 14, but has been eclipsed by other options since then. We wanted to lean even more into the chain of a solar explosion by adding Scorch. And with the global heavy weapons change, this also is a stronger option. If you have Ember of Ashes equipped, landing a full burst on a single target will trigger an ignition immediately. Holy crap. Yes, sir. Those ignitions essentially just doubled the damage. Now let's get into how it works. Each explosion now applies 10 plus 5 with Ember of Ashes Scorch stacks. That's goated. I can't wait to use that one. That's meta. I'm calling it right now. I'm placing bets here. 1000 Voices meta. Sunshot was a top candidate for applying solar subclass verbs, and the explosions are clearly a place to add it. Explosions on kill now apply 10 plus 5 Scorch stacks. Polaris Lance always had a burn effect, so it was an obvious change to switch this to Scorch. Perfect 5th shots now apply 40 plus 20 Scorch stacks instead of a custom burn. I'm gonna keep it real, I don't understand what they mean by the pluses. Do they mean it's 40 base and then 20 plus when you have Ember of Ashes? Possibly, we'll have to see. Two-Tailed Fox had tough competition as an exotic heavy weapon, but now it's the only weapon that can apply subclass verbs from multiple damage types without extra steps. Solar Rocket now applies 60 plus 30 Scorch stacks instead of burn. The Void Rocket already applies suppress. And the Catalyst completes the trifecta. We're getting a Catalyst. It's gonna apply Jolt, baby, man. That's gonna be such a meta rocket at this point. All the damage types. Too bad the Void Rocket doesn't apply Weaken. Prometheus Lens has utility with Solar 3.0 rework, but we wanted to give it something more spectacular on kills in addition. Added the Incandescent perk to the Catalyst. I'm gonna keep it real. That is a balanced change. Balanced. Not goated, just balanced. Grand Overture's latest buff, increasing its missile damage from 50%. Brought it up plenty, but it just needs its blind updated to tie into Arc 3.0. Switched the Catalyst to use Arc Blind. Alright, sounds good. And that does it for all of our exotic changes. We're gonna be moving on to Hipfire Reticles now. We're starting to experiment with Hipfire weapon reticles, conveying more information, and use the Manticore as a test bed for this. You can expect to see more weapon type or exotic weapon functionality showing up to the Hipfire Reticles in Season 21. And beyond. Added a reticle element to the Manticore, showing current stacks of anti-grav repulsor. It was listed on your left side, might just be in the middle of your screen now. Don't know if that's gonna get in the way or not, or I just have no idea what I'm talking about. We'll have to find out. Perks! With Strand coming to the game along with the new Strand weapon damage perk, we've updated a couple of older perks. Osmosis now works with Strand. I can't wait to see what kind of grenades we get with Strand. Those things gotta be some creative stuff. Elemental Capacitor now has the following effect when using the Strand subclass. Plus 20 to airborne effectiveness. 25 if it's an enhanced perk? That's crazy. Rewind rounds will be appearing on more weapons in Lightfall. That's cool. I don't know if I ever really wanted that perk, but now we have it. But was custom built to only work with the vaulted glass weapons. We've tweaked it a bit more in a general purpose. Rebuilt to work with non-vault of glass weapons. Eager Edge. Oh god, Bungie, don't do this to me. Is this another nerf? Eager Edge has some bugs we needed to address in a previous release. We've now taken the time to do more complete rework, which also let us reduce or remove most of the restrictions that were in place. God, I don't know if I'm gonna like this or not. No longer deactivates when moving faster than 35 meters a second, I'm guessing. That's a good change. More of just a bug, but yeah, it's a good change. Deactivates correctly after a single melee swing. That's just how it is now. Reduce the base lunge distance from 2 to 1.8. There it is. It's just a base lunge, but nonetheless, we hate it. Reduce the airborne lunge distance penalty from 25 to 20. I don't know what they mean by penalty. I'm a little lost on that one, but it's reduced and I don't like the sound of it. The enhanced perk now increases lunge distance back up to 2. So it seems that if you have enhanced Eager Edge, nothing changes, but if you have the based Eager Edge, it's getting worse. Blinding grenades on grenade launchers don't do arc damage, so it's not appropriately for them to trigger Arc 3.0 blind effects. We didn't feel the need to change their disorienting effect though. That's good. We don't want that, though I haven't used blinding in forever. We've updated the name to overlap less. Renamed blinding grenade launchers to disorienting grenades. Sounds good. And concussion grenades are just out of the game. Yeah, that's a good one. Vice Stinger is one of the most desirable origin traits in the game, absolutely. Particularly, but not only, on linear fusion rifles. To the point where it makes it hard for non-Vice weapons to compete. I'm gonna keep it real. I'd choose Cataclysmic over Reed's Regret any day of the week. It's just better. It needed some adjustment. With this change, it's still valuable, but more in line with other origin traits. Here it comes. This was typically a full reload. Oh, a full? I don't believe that. It was not a full reload. It reloads 25% of the magazine. I felt like that's what it always did. Now on to the future. We're already hard at work in season 21 and 22. And some of the changes we're making include adding a full auto melee accessibility setting. That's gonna be good, I guess. Bonk Titans gonna have it even easier now, which will apply to all forms of melee, including increasing how visibly they change even at high FOV, and adding some features like charge meters and exotic perk counters. Those were nice. But can we get a UI update, please? I'm tired of seeing like 4 to 2 buffs on my screen. We've also got balance changes in the works, but it's a little too early to get into them. We'll have more information for you post Lightfall. Well, that was the entire hotfix. I read it almost word for word with a couple opinions in there. I hope you guys are looking forward to these changes as much as I am. And if you have enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe would be very much appreciated. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.